It's time for Coffee with the Chicken Ladies, a podcast for people who love chickens.
Hey everybody, and welcome. It's Chrisie&Holly from Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. We're here, and this is episode number 84 of our podcast, where we talk about everything chicken, family, fun, and
more chickens.
More chickens. We drink a ton of coffee. I'm talking a ton. But most importantly,
we hug chickens every day.
And we kiss them too, don't forget. We brew coffee from a little coffee house here in Bel Air, Maryland. Holly Ann, what kind of coffee are we brewing today?
Hazelnut.
Hazelnut. We love it. So are you ready to sip some coffee and chat?
I am. But first, a word from our sponsor.
We have some exciting news to share from our sponsor, Grubbly Farms. This month, you can receive 25% off if you're a first-time buyer.
I'm a longtime subscriber, and my flock love the healthy, nutritious treats, plus all products ship free.
If you haven't heard, Grubbly's has a fantastic layer pellet and crumble feed. It's packed with plant and insect protein. It's perfect for those picky chickens and ducks.
This offer does not apply to subscriptions and cannot be combined with any other discounts.
It's a great time to try Grubbly Farms if you haven't yet. Use the code COFFEELADIES25. Try it today. Okay, so how are you doing?
Great, how are you?
Great. It was a really fun afternoon today.
Yes.
We had a really nice time with Dr. Rebecca and Kelly from Chicken DVM today. We had lunch, a nice afternoon.
Oh, yeah, it's super fun.
We actually got to sit outside with the chickens.
Yeah, that was fun.
Kelly had two of her little babies, which they were so cute.
I've got to tell you, for calm chickens, you cannot beat a cochin.
They were so cute.
They really are. And you were like, they're so well behaved. Cochins, they're just so calm. I love them.
They went right under the tree and just kind of scratched. And
they were kicking Gertie's mulch pile around.
Oh, man, Gertie's going to be in there like, what happened?
There was a stranger in my garden.
I know for a fact this is not how I left this mulch.
It was nice to see Truffle the Barneveld out in the sun. I'm in love with that breed. They're so beautiful.
My favorite part was listening to Truffle tidbit for Clover.
So cute.
They were out running around together, and it was so cute.
That's
all
adorable.
Of them out there. It was a chicken lady lunch date with the chickens.
It was super fun. We were all sitting on the chairs with our backs to the coops, and some kind of ruckus broke out back there. And like all as one, each one of us turned around to see what was going on.
Exactly. And I love our lunchtime specials. Everything had egg in it, basically.
It did. It's a potluck where all the dishes had eggs in them. Yeah.
It was awesome.
That's a true chicken lady lunch. But
yes.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Lots of good chat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what else do you have going on at home?
My garden is exploding.
Is it really?
In the best way possible. Yeah, one of my cotton plants is just taken off. It looks amazing. It's hard to grow cotton in Maryland because it needs a long season.
Yeah.
So I think I'm right where I need to be with this one. So fingers crossed we have some cotton come fall.
I got a lot of mint. I need to be making some mojitos.
Yeah, why don't we have mojitos right now?
We need them. That mint in there.
No, because you know what? I'd fall asleep on the laptop right here.
Forehead on the mic. Sorry, we're done. Checking out. But yeah, that would be good. I've got lots of mint going on.
Nice.
And some other stuff, but I need to be weeding some more. That's the story of my life.
Oh, yeah. With the garden, you're always weeding.
The weeding never ends.
I don't really even set aside a time to do it. I just do it as I move around through my day.
If I see some weeds, I grab them. But then it's like I see 20 more.
Yeah. I also planted some heirloom soybeans, which sounds crazy, but I want to try a couple things with them. And had a fantastic germination rate. They all popped right up.
You could make a soy burger.
I could make a soy burger. I can make tofu.
Yeah, you just put it in the food processor and grind them up.
Apparently, soybean hulls are supposed to be a good forage food for sheep. I have no idea if that's the case or not, but yeah, we're going to play around with it, try a few things.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a big favor. If you're listening to our show and you're loving it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a written review. We love to read them. They make our day. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button. It helps our show grow so much.
That way you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Etsy shop, see the t-shirts that we have there. You can become a patron of the show. Head over to patreon.com/coffeewiththechickenladies. You can check out our levels of membership. The top 2 tiers include a bonus episode every month. The other thing you can do to help support the podcast is go to our website, visit our show notes, use our affiliate links, and buy products from our sponsors.
Yay!
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Do you like subscription boxes?
Does it have anything to do with chickens?
Of course.
Then, yeah. Let me just take a minute to tell you about the Chicken Love Box. If you love goodies for your chickens and you need to go to chickenlove.com.
I love the Mega Box. Tons of useful products for my flock and a chicken tea for me.
You can't go wrong with the chicken tea. They are so cute and so soft.
In the June box, I absolutely love the embroidered rooster apron and the egg carton stickers.
I love those chicken leg bands with charms and the egg cartons that go with those stickers.
Boxes start at $39 a month. They ship immediately after your purchase, and shipping is always free.
It's such a great deal. Don't wait. Get off the nest and click already. Use the code CWTCL50 for 50% off your first box with at least a 3-month subscription. That's chickenlove.com. That's chickenluv.com. Get your subscription today.
Have you heard of Strong Animals Chicken Essentials? They make natural supplements for your flock.
Strong Animals has used plant-based products and natural approaches to promote the health and vitality of backyard flocks. Their products contain organic essential oils, prebiotics, and other natural ingredients to support the immune system and digestive health. Give your chicks and chickens what they need to thrive with Strong Animals health products. Visit getstronganimals.com today. Time for Breed Spotlight, yes.
Yes,
And this week's Breed Spotlight is
the Malines.
Malines. We are doing a Belgium breed of chicken.
Yeah, it's a French name for a Belgian breed.
Yep.
So the Malines is a very large Belgian breed of chicken.
Yes, it is.
They were traditionally produced as table birds, but this is going to be somewhat like the Delaware.
Yeah, like it starts out one way and then you have a good ending. You're
Right.
like, okay.
So they're decent layers. They're very good broody hens. They're very pretty chickens. They have feathered legs and feet, and they are gentle giants with calm personalities.
You know what? They look to me like the cuckoo Morans, but with feathered legs.
Kind of, yeah. I think there are a lot of similarities there. Their name comes from the Belgian city of Mechelen. It's Malines in French.
Right.
Sometimes you'll see them called Coucou de Malines. So in the 1880s, poultry historian Lewis Wright was a big fan of them, and he actually kept several of them.
Well, if he's a big fan, then you know that's a good chicken.
They really are gorgeous chickens. I had my eye on them for quite a while because they're cuckoo and their feathered legs and feet.
All I see is the Morans with this chicken.
Some people have compared them, saying that maybe they had similar foundation stock. The Malines were developed around the 1850s when farmers in the area of Flanders started crossing local country birds. Many of those local country birds were probably barred like the early foundation stock for the cuckoo Morans.
Yeah.
So there is a connection. So they crossed those country birds with some of the Shanghai fowl that were coming out of China and into Europe. Those early crosses were then crossed with any and all of the Asiatics that these farmers could get their hands on.
Okay.
So Brahmas, Cochins, Langshans, they crossed with all of them.
Right.
Lewis Wright believed that the main cross was with Brahmas, but that seems to be a guess on his part. And one of the reasons I say that is because peak-home genetics are pretty strong.
Yeah.
The peak-home tends to be a dominant gene, and these chickens have a straight comb, which makes me think more Cochin or Langshan. That's just a little aside.
Yeah.
The result of all of this crossbreeding was a very heavy chicken that comes close to the biggest of the Jersey Giants. Big, big chickens.
Yeah, the roosters run about 9 to 12 pounds, the hens up to 9. They compare in size with the Orpingtons, with the Brahmas. So you have to have room for a bigger chicken in your coop for these.
Who does not want a big chicken in their coop?
I got lots of big chickens in my coop and some littles.
Yeah.
They're definitely a beautiful bird.
They really are.
The sad part is that, yes, they're used for table birds.
Dual
they're not
purpose,
bad in laying.
But they're, if you're looking for a beautiful layer that could possibly hatch chicks for you, I don't think you can go wrong with this breed.
Yeah, definitely a pretty bird.
The most common color is the black and white cuckoo.
Yeah.
Apparently there's a white and a gold cuckoo. They're much rarer, but they do pop up here and there.
I like gold cuckoo. They're really
gold
pretty.
Cuckoo is very pretty,
yes.
So they pop up here and there in Europe mostly. So the Malines have a small straight comb.
Yeah.
They have these intense orange-red eyes.
Yes.
Red earlobes, feathered legs and feet. They have white legs like Orpingtons do.
Right.
And they have rather small wings. They wouldn't be able to fly anyway at their weight, but the small wings, they don't
Exactly.
really need
They're
them.
not going to be going anywhere. They're not going to be roosting up in some trees.
Heck no.
So that's good. With small wings and big body, you're not going anywhere.
No. They have soft feathering and a lot of it. And it was a big help to them in the region of Belgium where they were developed. It gets snowy and cold.
Yeah.
So I think all that fluffiness was an important part of their evolution. That makes them pretty cold hardy.
I think sometimes they evolve into what they need, and just as people evolve into what you need in the environment.
Mm-hmm, right.
If you live in a really cold place, it's cold most of the time, they're probably going to evolve into having lots of feathers because they need them. I love the soft feathering. The Jubilee Orpingtons are kind of like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They're like flyaways.
Yep.
They're really pretty.
Very soft. So that makes them a pretty cold hardy bird. The smaller comb helps that too. But their body mass, they're so huge and they have all those feathers. They're not super heat tolerant.
No, they wouldn't be a good bird for the mid-Atlantic. They would need fans. They
Definitely
need a lot of
fans.
stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, most birds can tolerate, but with some help in the heat, for sure.
Right.
Definite fanage.
Definite advantage. I would say so. They're considered a rare breed in the U.S. and in their native Europe. It's the same old story. They were replaced by production hybrids after the World Wars.
Yep.
And really, they've been kept alive by enthusiasts, small pockets of people here and there.
Yep.
They are not APA accepted, but the British Poultry Club does have a breed standard for them.
Nice.
I'm sure there's a breed standard in their native Belgium. Honestly, I did not have any luck finding it, but I'm sure it exists.
Yeah. They would definitely be wonderful in a backyard farm.
Oh, they absolutely would. They grow and mature slowly. Again, that works for the backyard.
Yeah.
Totally does not work for industrialism. And because of that, they really fell out of favor as industrialism moved in the 20th century. But like you said, they're great backyard birds. They're great farm birds.
Yeah. With a good personality, these birds deserve a chance, definitely. They like to forage and can deal with the confinement.
They do pretty well there. They also do pretty well in a mixed flock.
Which is important.
I would watch putting them in a flock where there's a bossy breed in charge just because they are gentle and laid back.
Yeah.
And sometimes even the big ones can end up being the lowest on the pecking order.
Well, this is something we've all learned along the way in breeds that you select. I think you have like the Swedish flowers.
Mm-hmm.
I have the barred rocks and the cuckoo morans. Strong chickens, sometimes as beautiful as they may not be as fun for your flock.
Right. Pansy was the head girl in that flock as the other younger ones came in.
Yeah.
So she has stayed the queen of that flock. She is not a benevolent dictator.
Yeah.
She really can cause some havoc sometimes.
Yeah, and it's the same way with the cuckoo morans and the barred rocks. You kind of learn as you go. This is one of those breeds that's a laid back breed. So it's, I don't want to say easy. I want to say easier for integration and easier for getting along in confinement.
Yeah, absolutely.
We always say this. Personality is so, so important when you pick a breed. So the hens are going to lay about 150 large light brown eggs per year. Fair.
Yeah, it's fair. It's like 3 a week. I mean,
it's fair.
It's not terrible. This is going to be during your laying season. They do go pretty. They're, again,
That's
supposed
the
to be.
Brahma in them.
Oh, yeah. And they're supposed to be very, very good mothers. I did see a couple of sources that said you just have to watch them because they're so big.
They're so big. Any kind of large chickens you have to watch with the babies. Roosters have a reputation of being gentle and friendly, which is good.
I saw that in numerous places. People said they love their Maline roosters.
Yeah,
which
is good. If you're going to have a rooster, you want one that's going to be sweet.
Absolutely.
We were answering questions today regarding roosters and how can we get along and them attacking them. The important thing to remember about roosters, I know this is a little off subject, but that height of hormones will then start coming down. So right before a year to about 15 months, you're going to be...
Yeah, when they first get that surge, their little brain is awash in testosterone.
Exactly. So be patient.
It's hard to get through to them then, yeah. I mean, the quickest way to get a rooster to go back to his sweet self is to remove him from his girls.
Exactly, and that's the advice that we gave.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to take him away, bond with him, and then put him back and hope for the best. And gradually, those hormones will go down.
Now, with your roosters, because they're so massive, all of them, but especially the roosters, you want low roosts with this breed.
Yeah.
You really don't want them jumping down from a high roost, risking injury. They are big, big birds.
And then we end with, where do you get them?
Well, they're gorgeous and they're rare.
So there's only a few choices.
Yeah. So the usual Greenfire Farm imported the Maline in 2013, and they do sell them as straight-run chicks.
Yes, they do.
I did a Google search, and they actually brought up some other breeders in the U.S. and in Canada. Plug in your zip code on a Google search and see if you can find any breeders near you. They're really, really beautiful chickens.
They're really pretty.
You see this chicken in your flock?
No.
Oh, I see this chicken in my flock. I would put them on my list.
I have the barred and the cuckoo. I have all
You
those.
don't need any more cuckoo.
Yeah.
The only cuckoo hen I have right now is Dolly the Dominique.
Yeah, and I love them. But I'm so picky with the chickens I put in my flock these days. I have less room, so I'm like,
Right.
it has to be exactly what I want.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they are a beautiful chicken and a welcome to anybody.
And what I love about them is that they're beautiful and they definitely would fit in with my laid back girls.
Oh, yeah.
The bottom line on the Malines is that they really are gorgeous. They really are friendly. There's not a lot of history out there about them because they were a good farm bird, and that's their story.
That's their story.
They were a good farm bird that was replaced by industrialization.
Again,
right.
So, if you have pictures, let us know.
Oh, yeah.
Send us. We'll give you a story. We will give you a shout out.
Are you looking for a vintage small farm feel for your egg packaging this year? Or are you looking to develop a unique brand image with custom packaging?
The Egg Carton Store offers a wide variety of recyclable cartons, customizable stamps, poultry care products, and a robust customizing tool to design your own labels. Plus, they offer fast, free shipping on all cartons and labels.
Visit eggcartonstore.com for all of your egg carton, label, stamp, and poultry care needs this spring.
Roosty's proudly sponsors Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. If you're raising chicks or keeping chickens, take a look at Roosty's store on Amazon.com.
We've personally tested their products and we're huge fans. They have their famous nesting pads, those fantastic chick water and feeder kits, do-it-yourself port feeder kits, water or nipple, and water or cup kits.
And you don't even need to drive to the stores. They're all available for Prime delivery on Amazon.com.
Visit Amazon.com and check out the Roosties range or follow the link in our show notes.
So, let's move on to our main topic. Yeah.
So about a month ago, we had an email in our inbox from Jane Howarth. And regular listeners, you all heard our really fantastic interview with Jane. She's such an inspiring person.
I love Jane.
Yes. Well, Jane emailed us because she wanted to introduce someone to us. Apparently, there is an affiliated branch of the British Hen Welfare Trust in France. The rescue operates under the banner of Champs Libres Aux Poules, and the head of the rescue is Heidi Carneau. Heidi, welcome to the show. We're so happy to be able to talk to you.
Hi, thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
We're so excited to meet you. You are another amazing chicken lady. And that's one of my favorite things is meeting these amazing women in the world that are doing such wonderful things for the chickens out there because we love chickens and you're helping so many.
Yes, we're trying, yeah.
Well, you're succeeding pretty well because we know that your latest number is almost 22,000 hens. That is impressive.
And Jane is boasting about you to us. So I know that you have a big cheerleader behind you. And she is so proud of you and all of this work that you're doing. It's amazing.
Yeah, Jane's fantastic. Jane's been so great for us from the start.
She's just one of those extraordinary people. Once you meet her, you wonder how the world would have ever done without her. She's just that
And
special.
she's so inspiring. And
Yeah.
you are right in that category with her because your numbers are staggering. And we love your drive to save these chickens. So we want to start with the question of how and why did you start this amazing chicken rescue? And was there anybody who influenced this work?
Well, what do you think? I think we've answered that question already. Well, why? I guess it's a number of factors. I've loved chickens. I've loved all animals. And then as I grew up, that sort of love for animals, well, it was always all animals, but then it sort of focused a bit more on birds. And then it sort of focused a bit more on chickens. And as the sort of underrated member of the sort of animal world, I think chickens are so easily taken for granted. And when you see the lives that they have, you know, from the first stages in the hatchery to the ones, you know, who live in cages, and then they only come out of cages to be slaughtered, it's just so sad, so depressing. I saved my first ex-battery hen as a student. I was a student in Paris. I went to a battery farm 3 hours away. I was like, I can't leave. I just can't leave like this. Grabbed the sort of scrawniest, baldest hen I could find. She came back in the train with me to the amusement of a lot of other passengers. And she lived for a couple of months in my dorm room in Paris, laying an egg on my bed every day. She had a lovely retirement at my grandmother's. This is a story that finishes really well. But that kind of really sort of got me in the raw chicken thing because I got so attached to her. She was brilliant. My dorm room was a mess. I didn't have many boys there back then, but I had my hen.
Hands before men. That's right.
Hands before men. I like that saying. I have a daughter who's going into college next year. I have to say that to her.
That is a brilliant trick. Send her a chicken.
You can take a hen with you, just don't have boys in your room.
Hens before men. That's right.
It works brilliantly. For a few years I was working, lived in London, didn't have time or space for animals. So it was a strange period in my life where I didn't have animals. And then when we started, moved out to the countryside, one day had people over for dinner who mentioned the British Hen Welfare Trust to us. And literally the next day I was on the phone, I'd booked some chickens, I'd bought a coop. 10 days later, we went to get our first hens, and I don't think I'd slept the night before. And no surprises, absolutely fell in love with these girls who were just so wonderful. Rescued some more sort of 3 months down the line. And my husband had to sort of put a limit of 15 chickens. I was not allowed to have any more. So obviously I, generally had 16 or 17, and he didn't really ever work it out. But it was still kind of limited to that. And that's how I sort of first got to know the British Hen Welfare Trust and the amazing work they do. I did a little bit of fundraising for them because it was just a charity that felt so, so close to my heart. And then when we moved to France, we obviously took our chickens with us. Lots of paperwork, lots of tests, fecal tests, a blood test. It was a nightmare, but we did it. Arrived, got here. And I think a couple of weeks after we moved in, just a mile down the road, I see these giant hangers and the name of an egg producer on the front. And it clicked in my mind going, oh my God, this is a giant battery farm just outside my front door. And it was actually really difficult. I was like, I cannot take this road anymore. I cannot see this. It's awful. And I managed to keep it out of my mind for a little while. I think it was another 2 months later, I see this lorry load full of hens, obviously destined for the slaughterhouse. I just broke down. I just could not stop. I was on the floor of my bathroom in tears, could not stop crying. It was awful. And when I eventually got out of there, I was like, I've got to do something. I can't live like this. And eventually, it didn't take very long. I managed to get in touch with someone who worked at that battery farm and just explain, because at the time, all I wanted to do was just take on an extra 10 or 15. We've got lots of space here. I had about 20, 30 chickens at the time. So definitely space for a few more. And had that initial conversation, said, when are your hens next going? Because I'd love to see if I can save a few. Said, well, you've got to be quick. They're going next week. And I remember this week very well. It was in January, early January. We'd actually met at the sort of local village drinks just before COVID, the last village drinks that were held to celebrate the new year. And it sort of kicked me into movement. So I just put a few things on a couple of Facebook groups, said, look, farm near me, they're going to be getting rid of some chickens. I'm happy to go and get some. Who would like some? Let's try and save as many as possible. And that was my very first rescue experience. I had nothing. I had no crates. I had no transport, no volunteers. My husband was on business trip that whole week. So I was literally by myself with the kids, having to bring them to and from school and just going to that farm. They laughed at me when they saw me arriving with a couple of cardboard boxes and 2 cat carriers and said, fill it up with chickens. They were very kind. They lent me a couple of poultry crates, which are much easier to transport hens. So I came back. I could only fit 2 in my car. So I came back with about 30 hens. They'd crammed quite a lot in those crates. Yeah. It was only a mile down. And then I arrived at my house. I was like, well, what do I do? The crates weighed about 40 kilos with the hens inside. I'm personally, you've seen my arms, incapable of lifting that amount of weight. So fortunately, I had some people who were coming by to adopt some hens, and they didn't know this, but they arrived in a van, which was brilliant. As soon as we'd gotten those crates out, took their van, went right back to the farm, borrowed all the crates they had on site, did a couple of trips, and I think then we took about 250 hens out.
Wow.
So all of those hens were then staying in my, I've fortunately had the space to keep them and to keep them safe at night, but they were staying in there. Obviously, I couldn't sleep because it was cold. They'd just come out of a 20 degrees centigrade environment. It was January. Awful. They all survived nonetheless. But that week, it was just back and forth. As soon as someone came with a big car or with a van, we're going to the farm. We're trying to get some more hens. And at the same time, the people from the slaughterhouse were just getting those hens out. And it was awful, but you've just got to put the blindfold on and just say, we're trying to concentrate, getting those hens out. We don't want to see what's happening on the side. Long story short, managed to save 394 hens that one time.
Yay! That's amazing.
Which was brilliant. And a couple of people who had helped, including those very first people with the van, said they would love to help out again. Great. So that got me thinking again, well, there's that one farm. They're not going to be clearing out their farm for another year, but must be plenty of other farmers around. So started looking, found another farm the following month, went back again with the people with the van, I think that time we got several hundred out as well again. And, it kind of happened from then. It just sort of happened on a monthly basis. Every rescue, another 2 or 3 people would say, oh, look, I'd love to help. It's like, yes, absolutely. So we're now about 40 volunteers, cover quite a large area. And, from the start, Jane and her team were just so supportive. I actually remember emailing Jane before I did that first rescue saying, look, this is what I'm going to do. What advice do you have? And, from then on, we stayed in touch. As soon as it was done, she emailed me and said, so how did that feel? Would you like to do it again? And I was like, yes, we're doing it again. And it was actually the British Hen Welfare Trust who sponsored my first crates, because poultry crates are actually pretty expensive. They said, look, if you want to do this, you're going to need equipment. Here, we'll send you 40 crates. And I was like, brilliant. And the rest is history.
There's nothing more that I love than a woman on a mission. And you were on a mission and you still are. And
I crashed. I was out of it for the following week. I had a sort of a fever. I just did not leave my bed.
That's okay, though. You got it
done. Exactly. The work had been done.
So I just wanted to back up just for a minute and tell the listeners that you are bilingual. You were born in France. You lived in England for a lot of your life, and you're back in France now. And so my question is, how difficult is it to set up a nonprofit like this in France? And was Jane able to help you with that?
Yes. So setting up the entity wasn't that difficult. There's a bit of paperwork, but the actual setting up of the entity wasn't difficult. What was very difficult, and this is what was very frustrating, because the rules in France and in England are different. And because it's quite a niche thing to do, saving chickens from the slaughterhouse. The law exists, but it's not extremely clear. There was a bit of a grey area, especially concerning transport. So in England, they're very lucky. They do not need, DEFRA decided that charities rehoming chickens did not need a special license to transport poultry. In France, they decided that we did. So that was kind of a lot of hoops to jump through, including, 7 of us ended up taking a 2-day course to be able to get the certificate, which allows us to legally transport poultry. All our vehicles need to be registered. There's a whole cleaning process which needs to be followed. So there is a lot of bureaucracy around that. Jane and her team, right at the start when we set up, we were just having sort of weekly calls just to sort of help me up and running and getting things set up. And it went, from everything from, how to deal with volunteers, chicken first aid. I mean, that on the day-to-day basis, I'm still always in touch saying, oh, my hen has this, my hen has that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a sort of weekly 1-hour call. And, we've spaced the calls out to, once a month now. We're still very, very much in touch because, well, from what she's saying, we're actually going through the same sort of motions that she went through 15 years ago. So it's just amazing having someone like her help us, because she's got the experience. She knows, all the things, all the problems, all the issues. She's been through it. She can help give advice. And, she's such a dedicated person that it's just brilliant.
And these days you have social media on your side so that you're able to reach so many more people more quickly.
Absolutely.
She started with, it's amazing. She started with the classified ad and the newspaper.
I don't know how she did it.
It's amazing. And I want to go back to one thing that you said is in the very beginning, you don't know chickens until you know chickens. And a lot of people don't understand the brilliance of the chicken and the emotional capacity of the chicken to love and be loved. And once you feel that, there's no turning back.
There is no turning back. You get swallowed up by it.
Holly and I were just saying this morning. The ones that need you the most, you get so attached to because they have that capacity to love you like you love them. It worked for you. It was like a magic bean. It was like, okay, here's your chicken, and then now we're going to grow this thing, and it's beautiful.
Absolutely. It kind of feels like every chicken deserves to be able to show that side of them, to be able to sort of live freely, to scratch the grass, to have their human to sort of run to when they call for treats. And it's a shame that most of them don't, but that's kind of where we try and help as many of them have access to that life, which I feel they really deserve.
We agree with you 100%.
Yes.
Heidi, did you have chickens before you brought home that first rescue chicken?
No, that was my very first one. I suppose we could have had chickens because we live sort of semi-rurally, but no.
So do you keep chickens now?
Of course I do.
Of course you do.
I am swamped with chickens. I have chickens in every corner.
We expected nothing less.
Yeah. Any sort of sick or injured or underweight hens do not go out for adoptions. They stay with our volunteers. especially with the battery hens. There's always one. Worst cases, there are 10. So once you keep them and you've looked after them and you've nurtured them, let's be honest, you don't put them up for adoption again. So, you end up with a lot of chickens.
So how many do you have now?
I can't say publicly because my husband doesn't know and he's never really bothered to count. So I'd like to keep that quiet.
I have to say, I agree with you. People ask me all the time exactly how many I have. And I'm like, I can't say.
No, it's gone into crazy territory. There's just I'm not owning up to that.
I'm wondering about the bird in the background. Can you introduce us to the bird in the background?
I can introduce. You can hear her, right? Let me go.
Yes. She's talking up a storm.
Normally she is on video calls, but she's had one this morning, so she's had her dose, I think. But, she does love to take part.
I have an African gray also. I told you we're kindred spirits. I have a little boy named Grayson.
This is a girl named Bertie.
Look at her. She's a beauty.
Well, I think she might just stay there for a while, or she might go back to destroying books.
African gray parrots and chickens. There you go. That is the magic.
So that was a tangent, but we just love those. The African Greys are amazing.
So you have rescued 21,000 hens so far.
It's not just me. I mean, as I said, we are a team of 40 volunteers, and by myself, I'd obviously be much, 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 much more limited. But now the team is growing. It's a great human experience as well, because you just meet so many really wonderful, committed people who are just as crazy as you are.
How many years have you been in operation now?
The charity was created September 2020. So my very first rescue was January 2020. So just
That's
over,
amazing.
technically, yes, just over 2 years now.
Wow.
What are your goals for the future?
Save all the hens. Obviously saving as many hens as we can will remain our sort of first and foremost priority. Our motto is adoption, education, evolution. Adoption speaks for itself. Education is about educating people not only to hens' welfare and needs, it's also about sort of trying to educate the general public about who laid their eggs. What do these signs on the box mean? What lives have these hen had? It's easy to say, oh, in a cage, barn eggs, free range, but what does that actually mean? Because people don't know. And evolution, the idea is obviously for the hen's status to evolve from an egg-laying machine to an actual pet, which is the role we think they deserve. That's what we want people to see, that hens make brilliant pets. So those are sort of the 3 goals of the charity.
Are you seeing the same rise in pet chickens in France that we are seeing in the US and the UK?
Yes. And that's partly what explains the numbers that you mentioned. People are really interested because a lot of people have just decided, it'd be quite nice to have a few hens. And then when they see the possibility of getting rescued hens, that also comes as a plus.
Yeah. Exactly. Here it started, 7 or 8 years ago, is kind of trending up. And then once COVID hit, then it exploded. We've been chicken keepers for many years. We felt that there needs to be a little bit more education out there. Okay, I bought the chick at the feed store. Where do I go from here?
What happens now? Yeah.
What happens now?
Absolutely.
And it's just amazing. 21,000.
I'm sort of running from one rescue to the next and saying, I'm going to take a break. And then it will be itching me to go, no, we've got to book some more. We've just got to keep going. We started off in the southwest of France, which is where I'm living now, and sort of grew around where we're living. We opened up recently a zone in the southeast of France with a team of volunteers who have actually never physically met, but whom I exchange over the phone with almost daily. And so we've been able to sort of run things pretty much, quite independently. And they've been doing a brilliant job. And obviously, that's something that we sort of want to keep going, finding the right people who are really committed and who have that same sort of drive and just the will to save these hens and who love them. And then when you find these people, it's fantastic.
We have a lot of listeners in France, so
brilliant. Well, we're always looking for volunteers,
and you can help. Then please do. That
absolutely. And we've got quite a lot of English speakers on our team as well, so don't let the French put you off.
No way.
We think the bond between a hen and her people is just a beautiful thing. For listeners who maybe haven't taken the plunge with chickens yet, or who are thinking about adopting a battery hen, how does it enrich someone's life to take in one of these hens?
When you think of the lives these hens have had, they've never seen the sun, they've never put their legs down on grass, they've never taken a dust bath, they've never eaten anything apart from sort of layers mash. You take them out of their environment into somewhere completely new, which must be so incredibly stressful for them. And then you see literally in a couple of minutes, they'll be scratching at the ground, pecking at the grass, stretching out their wings in the sun. You see these birds who often are in, terrible condition feather-wise. Some of them look like they're literally, you could just stick them in the oven because there is nothing on them. These poor little shells in a way. And within minutes, they're going around and scratching. And within days, they're accustomed to you and they're coming to see you. And within weeks, their feathers start growing back. And in a couple of months, they're these perfect hens. Every time it amazes me. It's just such a strong experience. You see these birds, you think, oh my God, they'll never make it. And not only do they make it, but they thrive and they become so beautiful and you just get so attached to them. I think they do know that you've saved them in a way.
Yeah.
They know that their life is different and it's different for the better. And they will make that link and see you as the cause. And I find these little red hens, these little laying hens, they are just such fantastic pets. Just to give you one little example of what happens at this house. I get the leftovers from the school canteen to feed my numerous girls. I generally come home from school at 5 p.m. So at 5 p.m., you can be sure there is a line of chickens right by the fence and you cannot walk for chickens. So last year we had the summer holidays. So 2-month periods from July, August, 2 full months of no school. So obviously after a few weeks of, no scraps coming back, they'd forgotten that 5 p.m. thing and they'd given it up. School starts again. And that's where I'm thinking, how long is it going to take them to sort of get back into the spirit of waiting at that time? And I thought, oh, they're quite clever animals. After a week, they'll probably fall back into the pattern. I was wrong. First day I come in, bring them back. Second day, 5 o'clock, they're all
right there.
And you're like, it took them just that one time of coming back. It was so fast. These animals just really never cease to amaze you.
I worked in an animal hospital for 15 years. I was an animal nurse, and we would rescue animals that were either left on our doorstep or stray. These were small animals, so dogs and cats. Those animals clearly are grateful and know that they're rescued. And this is where we see chickens, dog, cat, chicken. They're right there intellectually. They're right there emotionally. And they definitely can feel gratitude for a life change. And they're intelligent enough to notice the difference. And that's the problem with battery hens. These chickens are smart enough to know exactly what is happening to them and how horrible it is.
Yeah.
And that's why it's brilliant that you start this rescue and every chicken matters and everyone you save matters. And they know it.
They do, absolutely. And I find a lot of adopters will say the exact same thing, especially people who have never had chickens before. One element that often comes up is surprise. Oh my God, I had no idea that a chicken could be so smart. I had no idea I could get so attached to them. I've had some adopters who sort of are into dog training, train their chickens. They do clicker training. It works beautifully. Any animal that's attracted to food, once you've got something that interests the animal, you can work it out. And I've seen some brilliant videos of chickens walking in a line behind the lady who's adopted them.
We have a trainer here named Jeannie Keys.
She's a dog trainer.
But
and an author.
And an author, but she trained chickens, her own chickens, and wrote a book on training chickens and how she did it. And it was brilliant. And she trained them to come when called. I actually have a few of my own chickens right now. One that went through a health issue for many months who comes when called. They definitely know these things. And until you live with a chicken and know one, you don't understand it.
Jeannie, the trainer, says 2 standout things that we talk about all the time. The first is that chickens learn unbelievably quickly. The second thing is she thinks chickens are easier to train than dogs.
We loved that.
I'm not surprised. Honestly, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I've had several who needed daily medication pretty much forever. And, they know at the beginning they don't like taking it, but then there comes a point where they see you coming. They just sort of stand there and, they pick them up and it's got to be done. So there's no point in bothering to run away.
So what do you do to relax and unwind when you're not doing all this really important rescue work with these hens?
Everything I do has to do with animals or my family in general. I kind of managed to mix the both, which is the beauty of raising children in this environment. We've also got goats here, sheep, parrots, dogs, cats. And sort of pick up any stray or any baby that needs a home. So I don't know if it's relaxing, but there's often bottle feeding involved or just hanging out with them. The 2 little goats that we rescued from the slaughterhouse because they were males from the dairy industry. Got them, they were about this big and now they're about this big. But, they'll come when you call, they see you, they'll start, they'll run towards you, they'll want kisses and cuddles, they'll come up and nuzzle you. And again, there's also something there to be said because people don't actually think of goats as pets, but goats are amazing pets. I'm not sure I've really answered your question, but yes, it's just about caring for my flock.
You do what we do.
You do what we do, essentially.
We sit with a drink out with our chickens and our dogs and our parrots and our sheep. Holly has sheep.
Right. That's what I want to know. I want to know about your sheep. What kind of sheep do you have?
I have no idea. The first one arrived because there's people in the village who keep their small herd of sheep. And this one was a little 2-week-old baby. The mother had no milk, so she was tiny. So I just eventually took her in with her mother and was bottle feeding her until she grew up. So they're kind of mix of breeds.
I'm very interested in the heritage breed sheep, but I love sheep regardless. And I think that they're an animal that seriously gets a bad rap. So
a lot of farm animals people just don't realize. I think that's it. We've created this dichotomy between pets and animals that we eat. So obviously we don't want to get too attached to animals that we eat. So we've sort of pretended that they weren't animals and just a commodity. And that's something that obviously as soon as you live with farm animals, you realize is complete fallacy.
Yeah, it really is.
Starting with chickens, obviously. But
yes.
I think, goats, pigs, cows.
And this is what we talk about with veterinary medicine, especially with chickens. They fall between the cracks. We have large animal with horses and cows and sheep, and it's all okay to have a large animal veterinarian take care of them. And then we have dogs and cats. And then the chickens somehow fall in between the cracks.
Absolutely.
So we're trying our hardest to get them put in with that small animal group because that's where they belong.
Absolutely.
They need the medical care.
It is hard to find vets, especially in rural France, who will see a chicken because obviously they know about managing flocks of thousands and, the vaccinations and any sort of general flock treatment that they can handle. But a single chicken with a sow crop or with ascites is just not something that they do. It is quite frustrating because a lot of times when people do come in with these sort of issues and ask us what to do, short of, driving 2 hours to Toulouse where there is a sort of specialized exotics vet, it is difficult to find solutions. And that is something that is incredibly frustrating. But it is moving forward in France. There are more and more people who are taking their chickens to the vets and more vets who are then obviously incentivized to care for these chickens. So
excellent.
It is going in the right direction, but, in my mind, it's taking a long time.
Yeah.
With your work, with Jane's work, it's all bringing these things to the surface quicker to say, okay, this is a need we need. Now, British Hen Welfare Trust has their new online course coming that's out for veterinarians. So if they're interested in learning about caring for chickens, that course is available for them because we've come across so many.
It's going to be a life changer.
Yeah, that say that in veterinary school, they weren't taught about.
They're not. Still today, one of my volunteers is a sort of last year vet student. And she said, no, all that we've seen, they've learned how to do I can't remember the word in English, caponnage in French. It's, when you castrate the young roosters to then eat them as generally Christmas dinner. So they will learn that. And they said, obviously, it's a very difficult operation, but most of the times they die because of internal bleeding. Very, very grim. That they will learn how to do. But, managing the health of a single pet hen, that's not something that's actually offered in the course. And that is something that we'd really like to see evolve.
We can make it happen. We know that we can make it happen. We can push this forward. We can get on the platform that we have and we can start yelling it from the rooftops that we need veterinary care for our chickens and make a change. That's one of the best things about starting this podcast is making a change and meeting people like you that are doing that every day, and we can all work together. It's
Absolutely.
Great.
So that kind of bounces me back to a question, and it sounds like you did this in such a cooperative way. Do you have a strategy for how you approach and work with the French egg industry? Clearly, the first farm cooperated with you very well. So how's that going? And if there was one thing you could ask them to change, what would it be?
The way we've generally done it is sort of approach individual farmers. And often the response has been, yes, we're happy to work with you because, it makes sense for everyone. Often they're quite happy to make sure that part of their flock is saved. We will, if needed, pay a higher price than the slaughterhouse. So it is a win-win for everyone involved. We've also started working with cooperatives who also saw, what was interesting about what we do, because let's be honest, at the end of the day, these hens at 18 months, they are considered a waste product. That is what they are. It's horrifying, but it's the truth. So especially for the farmers who have smaller flocks, it's actually very convenient for them to have someone like us who can come out and take all the hens, because they get paid very little or nothing for their carcasses by the slaughterhouse. And some, for the ones with smaller flocks, they will actually be charged. So having people like us who can come in free of charge, we're super efficient, we're super motivated. It's always bright and smiling team. We'll come in, we'll get the hens, we'll be thrilled. The hens will move on to green pastures and happy homes. And that's a win-win. Going forward, that is something that obviously we need to communicate more about. And word of mouth between farmers is already doing a great job, because I think we do have a very good reputation in that respect. Good. We're always keen to sort of be known by more farmers. And with regards to the egg industry, my perspective, what I feel is a real issue is communication and labeling. When you buy a box of eggs, it does say where they come from, barn, free range, caged. But first of all, people don't really know what that actually means.
Exactly.
And that's one first problem. The second problem, which is for me an even bigger problem, is when you're buying cakes or a quiche, anything in which which use eggs as ingredients. And in that case, there is nothing. On the ingredients, It will just say eggs. When you're in the know, you know that if it just says eggs, it means eggs that come from caged hens. Yes. But people don't know. And to me, that's something that needs to be changed, because the consumers ought to know what they're buying, ought to have the option to buy a quiche made with hens who lived in a free-range farm or eggs who were caged. Exactly. And they deserve to know. And if they want to pay, a little bit more for that, then, that should be an option. There's a big issue there.
Yeah, exactly. I want to go back to something that Jane was telling us when we talked with her. People who start farming are doing it because they actually love the animals, and they want the best for the animals, and they get pushed into this industry of, where do I go from here?
Absolutely.
So giving them another option, they're usually very happy to say, this makes my heart happy because I've raised them this far and now they're still going to live on. So hopefully more and more will have that philosophy.
100% with you. And that's something that we've noticed, especially when we work with the sort of smaller flocks. And by smaller flocks, I mean 3,000 to 9,000. So it's still quite a large number of hens.
Very large.
Small flock. These farmers, some of them we worked with them, and it was the first lot of hens that they'd had. And they were horrified with the way that the hens were handled by people taking them off to slaughter. And it really did break them hearts. And so having someone like us, and this is where the position I would love to be in, hopefully soon, is when we can go into a farm and say, we will take all your hens. Obviously, if there's 100,000, that's likely to be difficult. But, up to sort of 3,000, we're not far from being able to do that today. That's really where I'd love to be. And for us as well, it's heartbreaking when we leave a farm and there are still hens in there, and you know what's going to happen to them. And we have this tradition. So we bring our poultry crates to transport the hens. We always bring cat carriers in case we find a poorly hen or an injured hen, so we can isolate her and transport. Right. Often the hens are in good enough conditions, we don't need them. So obviously, once the crates are full, we'll go back and we'll take out the last hens in these carriers. And then we'll always go back for one more, which will be the lap chicken, who will be sat on our lap on the way back. And then by then we'll know that's it. We've literally taken pretty much all the hens that we could.
Yeah.
Then you've just got to focus on the ones you're saving. If we were able to fully empty out a farm and have homes for all the hens in there, that would just feel so incredible.
It would. We totally agree with you with labeling, because you don't really think about it when you purchase a quiche, a cake.
I've never even heard that discussed here in the U.S.
About it was with Jane, which she said basically that they're giving the oddly shaped eggs that are not uniform. Right. Those are the eggs that go to make those products in the stores. Mm-hmm. So at least that's not the egg waste, but you want to know that the animal that gave you those eggs is being treated kindly with respect.
So the proportion of hens in cages has gone down a lot. I think, we're 60% 5 or 6 years ago, and we're down to 36%. So it's definitely going the right direction.
That's great.
But I think about 90% of those eggs are going into egg products. Very few people will actually go to a supermarket and say, I want eggs from cage hens. They don't. When given the option, and that's why I think the labeling is so important, when given the option, people are happy to pay more for hens who have had a better life. And that's the problem here. They are not given the option.
And here in the U.S., there's a difference between caged versus cage-free versus pasture-raised. A lot of people here in the U.S. say, well, I'm getting cage-free eggs. Well, you don't understand that there's a barn with 60,000 chickens. They can't move either inside.
Yeah, it's not much better.
Cage, but it's the same thing, basically. So there needs to be that education there to educate the consumer that sometimes the $1 for the dozen eggs, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it. Agreed.
No. Here in the US, we know in the UK, definitely in France, you're dealing with avian flu. How has that affected the adoptions and where are you with this?
Fortunately, the restrictions are being lifted here where we've had very few new cases and we're sort of at the end of it now, finally in June, which is quite late in the year. Before avian flu used to sort of be over sort of 3 months, sort of December to February. That was about it. Now this year it started off in November and it's only ending now. It is a real issue, especially in the Southwest where I am, because we're on the migratory corridor. So we do have cases. There are lots of farms, lots of culling. It's made life very difficult for us. We we didn't rescue for several months in the winter. We had one rescue, which we thought was safe because it was being done in an area where there had been no cases, and bang, a case happens the day before we were meant to get the hens. No. And so we had homes for 1,000 hens. Everything was organized and lined up. And, that just fell through because we couldn't run the risk. So avian flu has been a real problem for us, a real problem for the farmers, a real problem for hens who are meant to be kept under protection for longer and longer periods every year. So I know that the vaccine exists. The question is, how long is it going to take for it to be available? I've had some of my doctors, some people I know in other charities begging to try and get their birds vaccinated. But the answer was always no. Currently, it's only kept for zoos or, rarer birds of high value.
We talked to a hatchery that we work with. The owner tells us that the holdup on the vaccine is because it's being used as a test. And once you vaccinate, that gives them the antibody. So it's hard to test the bird to say they have it or they don't at that point.
I see.
The testing is the holdup.
Because a vaccinated bird will test positive.
They'll test positive even if they don't have it, if they're vaccinated.
So clearly something needs to be done about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because here it's just not viable. I don't know how many millions of ducks and hens were culled just in this past few months. Farmers are very angry and it just causes a lot of upset.
We started getting slammed in around January.
Yeah, January.
And we're now not even letting our chickens out. We're just at the point where we're getting warm enough that we can let them out. But it's taken a while.
It has.
Yeah. You can't keep birds inside for sort of 6 months of the year, especially when you're keeping them in farms. They're only kept there for a year. You can't call it bird free range if she's been inside a barn for half the time she was meant to be.
Exactly.
And the farms aren't set up for that as well. That's an also point that people seem to forget. Free range farms, the birds are meant to be outside for at least half the day. They don't have the sort of ventilation capacity. They don't have the space. They don't have the possibility to clean things. It's a real hassle for the farmers too.
It's bad all the way around. So what are some of the things that people in France or in the US or anywhere in the world can do to help further the cause of the battery hen?
I think it's down to communication. Communication is just so important. We rescue battery hens. To be honest, most of the time we rescue free range hens, quite simply because those are the hens that we are able to rescue. A lot of the battery farms are corporate owned. They don't want to run the risk of their hens being, photographed and seen, so they won't allow us to take them on. But we do manage to rescue some from time to time. And what strikes me every single time is that at least half of the people who come and get the hens, because we're very clear when people adopt, these come from cages. Half of the people will say, caged hens? Really? That's not illegal? People still do not know. There has been talks about making these cages illegal, but obviously it's just been talks. No law has ever come through. And so communication is really essential because people need to be made aware. People can't get upset and try to go against something if they don't know that it's still happening. So for me, that is the main thing, talking about the fact that these hens exist, obviously showing photos. And I think it's important to show neutral photos because in France, I think in other places, you do get a lot of these videos that tend to go viral, which show sort of acts of really shocking cruelty. And that's something else. But what I think would be important for everyone to see neutrally, what are these conditions? Right. What does it mean? Caged hen in France, it's 13 hens per square meter. Take a square meter, take 13 hens, and that's where they spend their lives. That's the space they have. It's not a lot. So making that information, obviously it is public, but people won't think of digging through and finding it out by themselves. So just showing it to them, making sure that everyone is aware of it, and then people can take the decisions.
Yes, educating the public on where your food is actually coming from and the type of animal that's giving us the food. I feel like there is a disconnect when it comes to chickens and people that don't have them, that don't understand it, or even like going out into the public and getting people to meet chickens and say, this is the animal that's giving you your breakfast. and them kind of getting to know them and maybe bridging that gap a little bit and saying, okay, now that I know this, maybe we need to change something. So what's the future hold for laying hens? How do you see it?
The current trend in France, and I think across Europe, and I would presume the US too, is fewer and fewer caged hens and more what they call alternative farms. So that does include barn eggs, but obviously also free range and organic. So I'm hoping that that's a trend that's set to continue. One thing that I would really love to see, and this is something that doesn't really get talked about as well at all, these laying hens, they've been bred specifically for the purpose of laying eggs. They will lay 300 to 350 eggs a year in their first year. I did some little calculations, and the weight of an egg relative to the weight of a hen is the same as the weight of a newborn baby relative to the weight of a woman.
Oh.
So laying an egg every day is the equivalent of creating a new baby every day. We take 9 months to make a baby,
Exactly.
And these hens are doing every single day nonstop. And of course, it creates cancers, it creates genital infections, it creates a whole wide range of health issues, which, people who take on these rescue hens will eventually be faced with a couple of years down the line. What I would love to see in the laying industry is sort of returning to a strain of chicken who lays fewer eggs. Who will lay maybe only 150 a year, because I've seen it. I've got some nondescript hybrids who they'll take a break in the winter. They'll lay 3 or 4 eggs a week during the sort of spring, summer and autumn. That's more than enough.
Yeah.
And they will live. I've got one who's 15.
Wow.
I've got several who are 8 or 9.
And it's a hybrid?
And they're doing great.
A hybrid that's 15?
Not a commercial hybrid. God knows what she's from, but yes.
She's what we would probably call farmyard mix.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But, the longest commercial hen I've ever had lived to almost be 6, which is extremely long, because generally older than 4 is quite rare.
Right.
And I don't feel that's right. If you're going to take something from an animal, you should respect it.
Exactly.
And having created these breeds that just lay and lay and lay and lay, I don't think it's right. So, I don't expect this will happen anytime soon, but my dream for the laying industry would be to sort of go back to a type of hen who lays, let's just call it a reasonable amount, so it's not so detrimental to her health.
I agree. And, the thing that would be lovely, which would be great, is everyone as a whole who can have at least 4 hens and have their own eggs. And
Absolutely.
Then we cut that demand down. That was the thing we say back in the 40s. Everyone had a backyard flock.
Yep.
And industrial egg laying wasn't really a thing because everyone did it.
It was the 2 world wars that
that
changed the world.
They did.
Yeah.
So if we can go back to everyone just living off of what they have a little bit, and then you would be able to get to know the chicken and enjoy a chicken for what she is or he.
Absolutely. And they'd have a good life too.
They'd have a really good life.
Right. We just profiled the I am Samani, which is one of the fibromelanistic breeds that are completely black. Well, the I am Samani hen, she'll come out and she'll lay you 20 or 30 eggs over a couple of weeks, and then she takes 3 months off. Then she'll lay you another 20 or 30 eggs. We thought that was fantastic.
We were like, she has a little union sign, like, I only lay this many eggs.
In the grand scheme of things, that's still a fair amount, I suppose.
It's enough. We both have so many chickens that we give away eggs all the time.
Yeah, I think I feed the village,
I know. I feed my neighborhood. I send my daughter, who's 17, who just got her license a few months ago, for like 5 or 6 dozen and a halves all around our little neighborhood to deliver them. And it's enough. If everybody did their part, if you had the room and you could. And that's the other part in the U.S. There are some areas that people can't have chickens, and they have separate homes. They have land.
Yeah.
And they can't have chickens. And to us, that's just not right.
I really do think
some
serious legislative changes need to take place.
Definitely.
And that's one of the reasons that we are so devoted to the heritage breeds, because those autogenetics, they do tend to lay fewer eggs, with some exceptions.
We feel like they're more of a natural chicken.
Absolutely.
So we ask all of our guests this incredibly unfair question. Do you have a favorite breed or type of chicken?
Well, I think, again, that's another question that's kind of answered itself. Those little red hens, they just tug at my heartstrings.
Do you know which hybrid they are?
They can vary. Often they're Lohmann Browns. I think there's 4 different breeds that they are mixed from, and each farm might have some slight differences. So even though they're all red hens, you will notice some are darker than others, some are quite light, some are a bit more flighty, some are very sweet right from the start, some will take a bit more time. you do actually see a variation in the looks of the hens.
Okay.
You're doing some amazing work.
It really is.
I say amazing a lot, but that's what it is. It takes a strong woman to get stuff done. My daughter's trying to figure out where she wants to go in life. And she's like, Mom, I couldn't be an animal nurse like you because I couldn't deal with what you saw. And I said, that's a good point. I did it because my love was so strong, but there were nights when I would drive home after a 12-hour shift, crying my eyes out because of what I saw that day. But it takes that amount of love and compassion to get you to do what you need to do.
As I said, sometimes you've just got to put the blindfolds on and you don't think, you just do. And then you think later. And later, obviously, there are some things that can be quite distressing. But then you remember what you've just done and what you're still generally doing. You focus on the ones you save. That's the only way to do it. And it does work. You said 21,000. That is a great number. Obviously, in the grand scheme of things, it's 50 million a year who go to the slaughterhouse. So it still is a drop in the ocean. But for that drop in the ocean, obviously, for each of those hens saved, that's the difference between life and death. But it goes further than that, because not only are their lives changed, but I feel they also impact the lives of the people who adopted them. Will then tell their neighbors, tell their friends, oh, we've adopted these hens. They're brilliant. You should try it too. And then they do. I find for every adopter, and this is what's helped us grow so much, is for every person who adopts, at least one other person comes. And if people are very vocal about it, then they'll bring more. And then potentially they'll want to help us out too. The best marketing tool is actually the hens. They really speak for themselves.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Jane said.
Yeah.
And Jane said in the very beginning, she was on TV and she's holding this hen and she said nothing. And she said the hen told the story. It's just bringing the awareness to people.
Yeah.
They don't know. They just don't know. Hopefully we can change some things. We can bring awareness. And someone that would go to the grocery store that would normally just buy a dozen eggs maybe looks for the different selection and looks for something that's a better choice. And if everybody does that, we can bring about change.
Absolutely. It's a great start. And pressurize supermarket chains. Like they've done that in the UK and it's worked brilliantly for them. And I think that is the best way forward, where the entire supermarket chain will say, I will no longer use eggs from cage hens in any of my products. Or if it's not on the supermarket level, at least on a brand level, having brands, large brands, you can say, well, I commit. All of the designers have now committed to not using fur anymore. Well, for me, this is the similar sort of step that we want to take, focusing on using only free range eggs. And I think that's something that can be very positive, obviously for the hens, but also for the consumers.
And you're making a change in France, which in turn is making a change around the world, bringing some awareness to this. It's inspiring. We want to inspire. We want other women to get out there and know that you're super strong. And then if you want to make a difference in the world, you can do it. How can listeners that are in the U.S. help you over in France?
I will go with communication. I think we can never communicate enough or talk about enough or share enough. People in the US certainly know people in France, or in their social media circle, there's bound to be someone in France who can hear the message and who can, find out we exist. Because at the end of the day, we're still a new charity. A lot of people haven't heard about us yet. So having press, podcasts, people talking about us, that's super useful, because at this point in time, we're growing. We've grown really fast. We're hoping to keep on growing really fast. That will only happen with more volunteers, with more people joining our ranks.
Are you across the board on social media? Can we have all of our listeners give you a follow?
Absolutely. Facebook and Instagram. That's all we're on at the moment.
Okay.
Can people make donations?
Yes, via the website. There is a page for donations if people wish to donate.
Heidi, I will actually link your website and your social media sites in the show notes for the podcast so people can find you that way. We just want to thank you for spending this hour talking with us. It's been wonderful to meet you. We are so inspired by your work.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. We are supporting your mission 100%. We would love to check in with you again in the future and see how the rescue has grown and see how things are going. And I'm sure our listeners would love to hear from you again.
We've got a few exciting projects coming up as well. So as soon as those start coming out, there'll be more stuff to talk about.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Bye.
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 We just want to thank Heidi one more time for taking the time to talk to us. She has a fascinating story and is doing great things in France.
Amazing things. Okay, now it's time for
Cracking the eggs.
Cracking those eggs. And today's recipe, we are going with
salmon quiche.
Yes, we are.
We are feeling like quiche.
We have been loving some quiches lately.
Oh, it's so good.
I put my dinner summer veggie quiche that I made up a while ago. If I'm going to eat eggs, sometimes that's the way I want to go.
The thing to remember with quiche is that you don't have to do a crust if you don't want to. The crust makes them really special and they taste really good, the pastry and all that. But if you're in a hurry or you're trying to keep your calories lighter, you don't have to do the crust.
A weeknight quiche can be the easiest dinner, and you can just buy a store-bought, already made pie crust.
Yeah, you absolutely can. It's harder to find gluten-free pie crust.
Can you find those?
There are some. They're usually not that good.
Really?
Yeah, so I almost always make my own. So if I were in a hurry, this would be a crustless quiche.
Which you can do anytime.
Exactly. But we're not going to judge you. If you don't have to eat gluten-free and you want to do store-bought crust, have at it.
That's what I do.
Exactly.
I'm serious. It's the way to go because you can just eat it with some greens or something, another veggie on the side.
Right.
And it's delicious for dinner.
Oh, it really is. So you're going to use 5 eggs in this quiche. It's very eggy. You have your choice. You can use half and half milk or heavy cream. If you're doing dairy-free, I would use thick oat milk.
And I sometimes do a mixture of milk and cream.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
If it's 1 cup, you could even make your own half and half.
Exactly.
You want about 1.5 cups of salmon. So like a cooked salmon fillet that you've chunked. You could do a few ounces of smoked salmon if you wanted to go for that deeper flavor.
This might be good if you make salmon the night before and you have a little leftover in the fridge.
Pretty much what I did, yeah.
And this is a perfect place to eat it so that you're not eating the same thing the second day.
Right.
This is what I like about this because quiche can just turn into the place for your leftovers to go to make them something spectacular.
It's leftovers in a pie.
And you use your eggs.
You use your eggs, right. So you're going to dice and saute an onion.
Okay.
Because you want that nice taste. It goes really well with the salmon. Then you're going to have about 1.5 cups of shredded cheese of your choice.
Yes.
I, of course, used a dairy-free cheese.
We've done a quiche recipe before. Cooking any vegetable first before you put it in the egg. When you don't, these vegetables are packed with moisture.
Right.
And if you cook them in the egg, all the moisture is going to go in the quiche and the pie.
And sometimes when you do that, after the quiche cools, then the crust starts to get soggy because the liquid is leaking out.
One of the most important things to me is cooking everything first before you stick it in the quiche.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to throw any other kind of veggie in here, you can. I actually had some diced broccoli florets that went really well in here. And I had steamed them, so they were also leftovers. Yeah. It is like a fancy leftover pie, isn't it?
I love it because it's a way to use your eggs, use extra stuff that you have left over from the night before, and make a completely different dinner.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fancy, but not.
Exactly right. Fancy, but not.
We had it today at our lunch.
Yeah.
The chicken lady lunch.
It's so good.
It makes it feel a little bit more fancy, but it's so easy to do.
It is. So with this one, like we said, you're going to cook any other veg you want to put on there. You're going to cook that. You're going to whisk the eggs, the milk, the salt, pepper, and dill together.
Until basically you don't see the separation.
Right, until it's thoroughly combined, yeah. You're going to stir in your cheese, your onions, and your salmon, and you're going to pour that in the pie shell. And it's that easy. You're going to bake it at, I think, about 375, 50 minutes or so.
I sometimes, too, put the cheese on the pie crust first.
Oh, you can do that, yeah.
And then put the veggies in and then pour the egg mixture
I've done that, too, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to do it, but
you're getting all the ingredients mixed up and in the pie crust.
Yeah.
You kind of can't go wrong.
I love quiche, and it's my new favorite egg thing.
Oh, yeah. I used to make quiche all the time. I've slowed down on it, but yeah.
In the summer when you're busy, we're doing stuff in the garden, we're doing stuff with the kids. It's easy and different.
Different is right. I mean, the thing to remember about quiche is that it is just another custard.
That's it.
It's a savory custard. That's it.
Exactly.
Your eggs and your dairy, your cheese, all of that stuff.
And you're baking it.
So you could use this as a base recipe. You could swap out the protein for something else.
Yeah.
You could change some veggies, add a different type of veggie.
I love the salmon because you can eat it. It's a healthy meal and then eat it again the next night and feel good about it.
Salmon goes so well with eggs too, for whatever reason.
It's really, really good.
So that's the impressive looking, but really simple to make salmon quiche.
Heck yes. Send us pictures. If you have pictures of your quiche, we would love to see them. Okay, so now it's about that time for retail therapy. Retail therapy. Yeah. This week's retail therapy is Roosty.
Yes.
Yay, Roosty.
So we're going to be talking about Roosty's DIY kits for feeders and waterers.
This is a fun thing you could do with your best friend.
Yes. Yes, you can. Your best friend with a drill.
And we did. So you want to be able to make something for your chickens and say, I did this for you. this is the thing for you.
Well, right now, when feed costs are through the roof,
Yeah.
this type of feeder, they're port feeders. It's really great to cut down on food waste because
It's enclosed. It's
Yeah.
not getting wet in an open bowl.
Right.
It's protected from, even when we talk back to avian flu, you want something that's closed
Right.
in. Nothing's getting to this food.
It keeps the vermin out.
It keeps everybody out.
Yeah.
And like you said, food waste is down because they're not going to knock a bowl over.
They're not kicking it all over the place.
No.
Right.
And it just keeps everything neater and cleaner in
it's
the
contained.
run.
It's not getting rained on. That's a huge one too.
Yes. You can pick the container you want.
Right.
I like this idea. You know what's going to fit in your space.
Yeah.
So if you need something smaller or something bigger, this gives you the flexibility to be able to pick
Exactly.
this.
Yeah.
So we did it with,
5-gallon bucket.
yes, and then we also did it with a Tupperware container.
Yep.
And say you have an extra container, an extra bucket of feed, something that came in from before,
Yeah.
you can reuse it.
Well, that's what I did. I pulled out some buckets that I had collected over the years, really.
Yeah.
5-gallon buckets from the farm.
Yeah, we actually did this together.
Yes. And it's really nice to, one, be able to reuse those things. I like the lids on them. They're easier to get off than lids on some plastic containers.
Oh, yes.
And like you said, you can tailor it to your own coop, which I think is fantastic. You get to reuse, you get to customize.
Recycle and reuse.
Yeah.
And you can close the food in and keeps it safe so that you can fill it less often.
Right.
So
Yep.
it's coming out as they need it.
Yeah.
Something happens with your bucket, you have these kits. You can simply remove them, put them in another
Right.
kit. So it's a win-win situation.
It really is. I love these feeders, and we've just been converting over to these feeders recently. And I want to say it has made a substantial difference. I want to say it's almost cut feed usage in half.
Yeah. I love the fact that you do it yourself. You get that satisfaction
Mhm.
of doing this. You know you made it for your chickens and you're doing it right. And I love the fact that you're picking the size container that you want to pick. Roosty's also is on Amazon. It's easy to get to.
Yeah.
They have Prime delivery. So it's something that if you need, you're going to get quick.
They offer free shipping, and they're probably able to do that because they're not sending these huge things.
It's not huge. And before they come, you just have to have the container that
Right.
you're going to use. But that's the glory of this. You get to select it.
So the nifty thing here is when you're about to make your feeder, you open the kit and there is it's essentially a drill bit that's a cup
Yes.
and will cut the perfectly round disc shape out.
Right.
And then you install the port in that hole that you cut out.
Mm-hmm.
But you use that over and over. You can cut as many holes as you need to and as many vessels as you need to.
Oh, yeah. The other good thing is you can't find these, but you could put them all the way around.
You could, yeah.
So you take one container and put the cups entirely around it
4 sides.
so that the chickens can all have their own separate spots.
Yeah, I like that. The one thing I will say with the port feeders is you have to have enough of them that your chickens can run from one to the
There's
other in
space.
case they get pushed out. Exactly. Now, as far as the waterers go, there are 2 different attachments available. You can make your waterer out of the same kind of plastic container, but you can make it with little cups,
Mm-hmm.
or you can make it with the nipple waterers.
Yeah.
My personal preference is the cups. They both work really well. It just comes down to what you want.
Mine will drink out of the cups. They have another one in there that they use with cups.
Yeah.
So this is going to be just something that's great for them
Yep.
to continue with. And
Yep.
a lot of people have been commenting on some of our reels that we show them drinking from the cups, that their chickens will not.
Oh, I wonder why not. Yours didn't hesitate. They were right in there.
Not one single second.
Interesting.
They were right in there. But it's also, to me, a boredom buster. You know, when you
Yeah.
make these and you have different types of feeders,
Uh-huh.
they get bored with the same old thing every day. This is a little bit of a challenge to have to get to the food. So check out Roosty's
And
right
this-
on Amazon.
They're right on Amazon. They also have some other awesome stuff. We have reviewed their nest box pads before.
And-
Still probably our absolute favorite thing.
And their chick feeder and water, which
Yes.
is awesome
Yeah.
quality.
Yep.
Okay, so let's tell everybody what we're going to be talking about next week.
Next week, we're revisiting a breed.
Yes, we are.
We are profiling the leghorn again.
Yeah.
We have lots of great stuff.
One of my most favorite.
Our main topic has been in great demand recently. We are talking about heat stress in chickens.
Yes, we are.
Our recipe is a lavender sour mixed drink. Little egg white in there.
Oh, yes.
Sounds fantastic. Our retail therapy is Rebecca Marshall. Rebecca's going to be talking to us about her new clothing line.
Yeah.
It's super cute.
She's one of my faves.
Yeah.
Okay, so what should we tell everybody to do until next week?
Hug your chickens.
Every day and kiss them too. Don't forget, we'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you'd like to see more of us, please follow us on Instagram at Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. If you'd like to help us grow the podcast, please leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, please visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. Thanks for listening.